And then we start the recording and start the webinar. We're good to go. Kavita, it's good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Where are you in the United States at the moment?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Mm-hmm. How is life in Salt Lake City these days?
It's pretty hot. I think we are experiencing like extreme temperatures right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping that it's going to cool down in a bit.
Is Salt Lake City, is it, I remember, is it famous for fast racing, or isn't it? So isn't there a racetrack somewhere in your city, or do I remember it wrong? I always
it's famous for skiing. So
skiing, really?
Yeah, we have a lot of ski resorts here.
Oh, so how does it work? Which mountains are close to Salt Lake City?
There are quite a few. There's Solitude, there's Snowbird, the Park City, there's ski resorts, quite a few here. Like I would say 5 at least that I know of. Mm-hmm. And maybe some that I don't know about.
How high are the mountains?
5,000, like where I am right now, I'm 5,000 feet above ground. Mm-hmm. So pretty high.
I have to recalculate it in meters, so we are on a metric scale here in Europe. Let's switch to the topic of the podcast recording today, artificial intelligence. You wrote a book about artificial intelligence, which is called The Business Case for AI, a leader's guide to AI strategies, best practices, and real-world applications. Yep. Every time when I hear artificial intelligence, the movie Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger pops up in my mind. And especially this scene where you see his face, so it's a machine, half human, half machine. Mm-hmm. And when you open the internet, I think a lot of people associate with artificial intelligence, machines are taking over the world and will replace everybody in the workplace. Let's start with the first question. The general picture of artificial intelligence, that machines will conquer the planet, is that really true? So what is artificial intelligence exactly?
So artificial intelligence is not a robot like how you see it in movies. It's actually the software inside of it. So it's a special type of software automation that tries to mimic human-like decision-making behaviors in a computer using what's called computer algorithms. Mm-hmm. So, and there's not just one type of AI. The AI is actually made up of different sub areas. So, for example, there are AI systems that understand human languages, and it helps converse with humans as how humans would converse with each other. That is called natural language processing. So, understanding and making sense of human language. So that's one big sub area of AI. And then you also have other AI systems that can see images and video frames. That's known as computer vision. So self-driving cars, for example, they use computer vision to see objects and obstacles on its pathway. And just like that, you have different subfields of AI, like machine learning, deep learning, and they each come together in different ways to solve specific problems. So in a robot, you'll have natural language processing systems understanding human language. Then you'll have computer vision that's able to see what's going on in the environment. Mm-hmm. Then you'll have other fields of AI trying to help the robot move in specific ways. So it's really a specialized type of software automation that tries to mimic us, really.
Why do we need that? What problem does it solve? Why is artificial intelligence here in the first place? I mean, there's always the discussion. So you have technology, and then what's the use case to it?
Yeah, so from a business perspective, AI is not really a cool thing that you see in movies. It's more, there are many use cases for AI. One big area is in like productivity improvement. AI systems can really assist humans in tasks that are complex and high workload and can immediately bring efficiency to processes. So let's just take like fraud detection. So if you want to analyze a credit card transaction and determine if it's fraudulent or not, you'll have to do this on a case-by-case basis and over again, and the volume is also really high. And for a human to do this repeatedly, it's very tedious. However, when you introduce AI into the picture, their efficiency immediately goes up, because then you only have to review maybe the flagged transactions or the transactions that had the AI had problems dealing with. So it really becomes the human's best friend in that in that sense.
So do you have other use cases, just to get familiar with that? You mentioned that you can make transactions more efficiently with artificial intelligence. You can do it.
Yeah, you can flag fraudulent transactions a lot more efficiently. And just like that, you can do a lot of manual process more efficiently with the use of AI. So if you take like customer service, a service operator will usually have to read the customer service tickets and then route it to the correct departments for resolution. So this is, again, they have to read it. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, but an AI system can do this in a matter of seconds. So it immediately boosts the humans' productivity. So their workload reduces.
Let's stay a little bit with this transaction type. I mean, in business, I think there are many options for that. Bookkeeping, for example, might also be something. Is it possible to automate the processes like invoices? I mean, there are still a lot of paper invoices around in the world. Is there any chance to automate the process of bookkeeping with artificial intelligence?
Yes, so artificial intelligence has very specific uses. So when it comes to invoices, maybe it'll do a better job at recognizing the digits, the text, and extract all of that in a more intelligent fashion, versus just using a simple software script. And AI can do that more efficiently using maybe computer vision technologies, if you feed it like a PDF image. Yeah, so it's got a lot of uses in that as well, like document management, discovery, search, recommendations. So a lot of users in that area as well. Yeah.
What are the areas of artificial intelligence that people already use but might not be aware of? So it's where is artificial intelligence in use? What cases?
Yeah, if you take Amazon, for example, you may not realize it, but their recommendation systems are driven by algorithms. And
really?
partly, yes, the algorithms driven by algorithms, and a lot of it is AI-driven algorithms. So it understands your taste, your browsing behavior, your past purchase behaviors, and then it tries to recommend what's most relevant, what you are likely to purchase. And you'll see a lot of that in their product page. You'll see 2 to 3 different types of recommendations, like similar items. That's one type of recommendations. The customer who bought this also bought that. So that's another type of recommendations. Then you also have recommendations coming through email. So a lot of these recommendations is powered by algorithms, and a lot of it is AI and machine learning driven recommendations.
Really? Amazon is using artificial intelligence to recommend things. I thought this is artificial intelligence already.
Yes, yeah. Some people wouldn't think of it as AI, but that you can use AI to make recommendations.
What is the proper definition then in technical terms of artificial intelligence? Is there a general accepted definition?
It's a fine line. So a lot of AI systems today use machine learning and deep learning under the hood, but historically they have been very like rules-based. So it will encode like humans' understanding of a domain in the form of an exhaustive set of rules. So that is not very scalable. So that's why machine learning systems and deep learning systems became more popular, because those systems learn based on seeing examples from data. So it sees lots and lots of like maybe credit card fraudulent transactions, non-fraudulent transactions. Then it starts to learn what are the patterns that makes it fraudulent or non-fraudulent. So now that's what's most popular, machine learning and deep learning technologies that uses, that's considered AI.
How does that work, machine learning? What is the principle behind it?
Machine learning is very dependent on data. So let's say you're trying to make a prediction on a person having a risk of lung cancer. So the machine learning needs to know what are the different attributes that leads to lung cancer, and what are the attributes that lead to a person not having lung cancer. So maybe a specific type of a tumor that it sees, or in a specific location. So it learns based on different attributes, and then it essentially creates a mathematical function that will say, hey, based on these data points, this person may have lung cancer, and this person may not. And it can also take in the patient's information in making those predictions. So it's highly data dependent. And with machine learning, there are two general types of machine learning. One is called supervised learning, where the machine is told, these are the correct answers, and these are the wrong answers. Now learn from data based on this. And the other type of class of machine learning is called unsupervised learning, where it's just given the data, and the machine has to try to figure out patterns just by analyzing the different data points. So this is generally how machine learning works. Yeah.
So you mentioned diagnostics, lung cancer. So it must be a blessing for drug development, then, I assume, the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, it's a fine line between using machines to make those predictions and actually trusting those predictions. So there has to be a domain expert in the loop to verify that the predictions are, in fact, you can actually use it, trust it. And that's one of the problems of using AI in healthcare, because you don't know how the AI system came up with the prediction. So doctors may have a hard time trusting those predictions. So that's where now there's more and more research on trying to explain how the AI systems came up with those predictions, and can you trust it? Because in the end, the patient is at stake. So you want to make sure that you understand how accurate the system is, and what are its failure points, and how it came up with those predictions.
Yeah, diagnostics is a huge problem in medicine. I think also the failure rate of human doctors is quite high. This is the reason why when they make tough decisions on cancer, for example, that they consult with other experts in the field, exchange information. Do you see any chance that in the foreseeable future, artificial intelligence could take over this job with 100% accuracy rate?
AI systems will never be 100% accurate, just like humans. It will always make mistake on some cases because the underlying data. So for example, you're feeding it an image that is suboptimal. So it doesn't really see those data points very well. So there's a high chance it's going to make mistakes. So it'll never be 100% accurate, but maybe you can reach 90% accuracy. And by itself, I think in the healthcare setting for diagnostics, it's quite dangerous. It's more likely that physicians will use it as a second opinion instead of trusting the AI system alone. So that's my personal belief, that I wouldn't want a physician just trusting the AI system on my medical decisions.
I mean, do you know Star Trek?
Pardon?
Do you know the series Star Trek? Star Trek, the television series. They have this device, I think, in the latest the latest series, the German version is Tricorder. I think it's also in English, Tricorder. It's this medical device where you just have to hold it in front of a person, and then the artificial intelligence automatically tells which diseases the person has, what treatment regimen the person needs. Do you think this is possible someday, that we get such a device that assists the physician in a way that they can more focus on human-to-human interaction? I think this is the biggest problem currently in the healthcare system, that there is so much paperwork and so much repeated work that professionals who very often spend 6 years on universities, 1 or 2 decades in getting trained in their field, and then they have to fill in the paperwork. It would be really nice to have such an assistant who says, okay, this is this disease, and now please treat the human like a human. Do you see this possibility that all this redundant work, repeated work, that just takes time and is boring and is makes people a little bit obnoxious, that this can be taken away?
Yeah, I think where AI systems really shine is in becoming an assistant. So let's say a physician will have to do a lot of research in administering the correct diagnosis or the correct medication. So the AI system can actually help perform the research. So look at all the literature, bring up all the evidence, suggest potential medications, potential treatment options for the patient. And then this significantly reduces the workload of the physician. So they can look at what's already suggested to them and then use their training to finalize what exactly, so customize the treatment for the patient based on the grunt work already done by the AI systems. Like the AI system can also say, these are the tumor locations. So, and the physician can verify, hey, yeah, that looks definitely, those look like tumors to me. And that reduces their workload and prevents, I think it will prevent burnout from all those administrative work.
No, absolutely. I mean, if this can be automated, it's very helpful, and it doesn't replace humans. So it's just like a human assistant, but for any case they need. What do you suggest if someone wants to start in that field, and what is the best starting point for getting familiar with AI?
Yeah, so it depends on your goals. So if you are a physician and you want to start using AI, you may want to understand what it really is to start with, and then see how it applies in domain-specific problems in your field, because it kind of differs from how people in the e-commerce space see AI, because there's a lot more tolerance for errors in the e-commerce space versus in healthcare. So you want to be more specific and read things about AI in healthcare. What are the risks? What are the benefits of using AI, and how they can actually employ AI in those spaces. And once you have an understanding, then look for solutions that you want to implement in your practice, maybe. Because there are a lot of solutions that are already prepackaged that you can customize on your patient data and then use it. So you'll want to look at what are the options available. And in some cases, you'll have to custom build those solutions. And that'll require that you tap into AI expertise outside your domain. And for AI systems to work well, it has to be in combination with domain experts, because AI systems don't work in a vacuum. You need the domains to tell the developers how the AI system should be working, what's correct, what's not, how to evaluate. So all of that input is to going into the development of AI. But if you're looking to use AI in your business functions, then it's a lot more general. So you know that AI systems are applicable for productivity improvement. So look for areas where there's a lot of manual, tedious work. So when there's a lot of manual, tedious, high volume work, which requires humans, then that will often can use AI. And that's a starting point like those are the low-hanging opportunities within the organization.
I mean,
and also one more thing I should add, that in healthcare, a lot of their legacy software systems are highly rules-based. So that's another area of opportunity people should focus on. Like, look at your legacy software automation. So is it having some accuracy issues? Is it hard to manage? So maybe you can replace it with AI for higher accuracy. So that's just a hypothesis which you have to test. So you'll have to develop an AI system and compare it alongside your legacy system and see which one performs better.
I mean, the best way, my opinion, would be to go somewhere on a website, download ready-made solution or a finished solution, implement it, and here we go. So like Adobe Premiere Pro, for example, for podcast post-production. What is the reality of artificial intelligence software? Where are the challenges from your experience that companies face when they want to implement artificial intelligence solutions?
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest challenges is in data. So often they want to start an AI initiative, but they don't have the data to support it because either they have not been collecting the data, or the data is just is not available. It's a new problem and the data is not being collected. So in those instances, I always recommend that why not you start manually, because you can generate data as you go and you have a better understanding of the problem. So data is a big challenge for companies when it comes to AI. The second challenge that I've seen is also like confusion. Like they try to use AI for every software automation problem, and that really doesn't serve the purpose. It doesn't really help because AI is more expensive than just simple software script that runs in the background. You'll have to invest a lot in hiring data scientists, hiring the supporting people like the data engineers, the software engineers, and maintaining those systems over time is also a lot more expensive. So those are two areas I see a lot of issues: data and understanding what is AI and where it's most applicable.
How does such a team, you mentioned data scientists, how does such an AI team look like when a company starts implementing? So it's not automated right from the start, it still needs humans.
Yeah, so often it needs a domain expert, a person who really, truly understands the problem. Like a physician, if you're trying to automate lung cancer prediction, then you need the physician in the loop. At the same time, you also need a business stakeholder who understands how this solution is going to impact the business. This can be a product manager, project manager, somebody from the business side. Then on the technical side, you will need a data scientist who will develop the AI solution to standard. Then you may need a data engineer to help gather the data needed, bring it to a form that the data scientist can use. And you may also need a software engineer to integrate the solution into your business processes. So that's kind of typical for a small AI initiative, to have all these people.
So it's a larger team, basically, so it doesn't make sense for very small problems, for just mini problems to set it up.
Say that again?
So no, it needs a larger team then. So it's for mini problems, for small solutions, it's a little bit too overpowered then, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so this is typically the size of team I recommend for within a company. But there are also startups. They can't afford all these people at once. So they can hire data scientists first, and then a data engineer a little bit here. And so it depends on where you are. Within an organization, this is the minimum size I would recommend.
That makes sense. I mean, what is the most logical point for companies to start? It sounds to me still like there's so many possibilities and opportunities that companies can potentially improve their efficiency with artificial intelligence. But what are the low-hanging fruits where I say, okay, we need to do this? I mean, every company needs quick successes when they start doing something. So going for a huge project that lasts a few years and with unclear results at the end is probably not something that keeps a company, an organization, and all people in the organization hooked. What is your recommendation for low-hanging fruits where say, okay, you can set up a project, it's done in 1 week, and you see how it works, and then you can go to the next bigger problem?
Correct. So in terms of where in the business function you could be looking at, I would say start with like customer service, because there's a lot of data being generated daily. There's lots of manual processes there. And also in customer service, people operate based on metrics, like what's your average response time, what's your CSAT score. So a lot of metrics are already established. And the data has to be stored for continuity in interaction with patients. So not patients, with customers. So that's an area you want to be looking at if you're a large organization and if you have a like dedicated customer service. Then another way to look at it is to look for the big pain points in your company where you're doing things manually and it's really expensive, and by introducing some form of automation, it's really going to speed things up. So maybe you're reviewing something and it's taking a lot of time and it requires like human level reading and decision making. And that's a hint that, hey, maybe AI is a solution here. And also because you've been doing this manually, you will have a better understanding of what problem you're solving. And then you can establish like your baseline. So this is how much time it takes me right now. Now let's employ a small prototype and see if it saves us time. So it's easy to like compare. And then once you know that the AI system is going to work in this context, then you can really build it out and integrate into your workflow.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, the next problem that I see in companies, in large organizations, is this, what we talked about in the beginning, this natural response of people. Okay, we now get more software that makes things more efficiently. And we remember all the efficiency consultants from 10 years or 15 years ago that who fired then 20% of the employees. So I think there is still this natural fear of humans that AI will replace them in the end. How do you tackle such problems in communication that you keep people motivated to move a project forward and not start fighting against it?
I think, again, it starts with like education of your employees, your customers, and everybody who's in conversation with you on a daily basis. Because there's a lot of fear around AI that it is going to take over your job, it's going to take over the human race, and all these unnecessary fears. And so employees need to know how the AI is going to be employed in the company, what are the potential ways, and what the company will and will not do with these AI systems. And once they have this high-level understanding of how it can help them, the fear will reduce a significant amount. And then having them as part of the development process can also ease some of those fears, because they then become invested in the success of the AI initiative. And they are the domain experts. So they can never go away. They have to generate the data for the AI systems. They have to evaluate if the AI systems are doing the work correctly. And in the end, their job, the nature of the job may change a little bit, where they're not doing all the tedious tasks. They're just doing a subset of the tedious tasks that the AI cannot handle. Or they're just reviewing the cases that they really need to review. So it's really going to become their best friend as opposed to take over their job completely. Now, what it means to the company is that maybe they don't have to grow a much larger team at a higher pace. Maybe the growth will be very slow, or they may have to hire more people because they can support so many more customers. So it just depends on what happens through employing AI.
That's an interesting thought that I had in my mind when we were talking. It's, I mean, the usual thing, salespeople come to a company and try to sell something and say, afterward, everything will be better. And when you have a finance guy in the room, the first question they immediately ask is, okay, what will become better and how we can measure, how can we measure it? What are measurement factors for artificial intelligence that you usually see in your practice?
Yeah, so there are few parts to this. The first is the AI system itself has to operate at a decent accuracy. Otherwise, it's not performing its task well. So you can't really use it. So I call this the model success in my book. And the model is a means to solving a business problem. So you need to also measure that. So is it trying to reduce the time to accomplish something? So then you want to track the time and measure it between what's happening now and what's happening with the use of AI. So maybe you'll find that, hey, with the use of AI, our time is actually going up. Then you'll have to investigate, why is this happening? Maybe your workflow is inefficient. So you have to have the business success as well. And the business success can be, you should measure the immediate impact from using AI and also slowly measure the long-term impact. So maybe cost reduction is your long-term impact. So measure that, and that'll take some time to realize, but you want to start tracking those numbers. And you also want to measure or understand user success. So what do users think about using this AI system in their workflow? So some users are adamant about using automation. So if you see that kind of resistance, then there's a user adoption risk right there. And by just talking to users, you'll also see problems with the model. So the model's not performing accurately on really simple tasks. So then there's no way to know this unless you talk to the user. And if the user has to take 10 additional steps to use the output from the AI, then there's user adoption risk, because then they may go back to the old way of doing things because it's so much more efficient. So you want to know what the users think and address a lot of their concerns so that AI is actually used as a tool and not just seen as a cool thing that comes in and then just goes away after that.
I mean, I think search, would you consider Google search artificial intelligence?
Google search is a combination of lots of different things, and one of it has a machine learning component to it. And we don't know exactly where the machine learning is used. It might be in the understanding of the user's query. I think a lot of it is there, and also in the ranking of the search results. So one of the signals is probably powered by its machine learning.
And what are the other things? You said there are many things involved.
There are many things involved, yeah.
And what other things are these in Google search?
In ranking, one is the relevance of the results to the query. Then there is how trustworthy is the source, maybe. Also the recency and the authority of each source. So a lot of those type of attributes, and some of it may feed into their machine learning algorithms to say that this is the source you should rank first and this one you should rank second, yeah.
But not everything feeds automatically into machine learning.
Not everything. I don't think it's everything, yeah.
Okay.
And it keeps changing, Google keeps changing their ranking algorithms and how they use it.
Yeah, unfortunately. And it's a black box. It would be interesting to understand how it works.
Yeah, so what I tell you today, tomorrow it might be different. It might be mostly machine learning based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing, I mean, I started in the 90s, and it was the beginning of the internet, and most of the search was not supported by the internet back then. I think this was the time when the first search engines came to the market. If I remember Alta Vista, for example, it was just a listing where people manually entered the website, and it was just from A to Z.
Oh.
And it was just really back in 1995, 96, they started. And the usual search was basically going to the library, getting the book or getting the study. And if it was not available at my university, they had to call another university somewhere in the world, get it delivered by mail. And it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. And now, I mean, today it's phenomenal. Every scientist, I think, can use search engines. It must not necessarily be Google. I think there are other better engines for scientists, but everything is available on a fingertip. And it has improved a lot the productivity of people. It's the upside. The downside is that it can't work and that things go wrong, and that there are mistakes and there are failures. What are the biggest failures in artificial intelligence and implementation that you saw in your career? And how can people avoid that?
Yeah, with Google, one of the failures is it cannot sometimes understand ambiguous things. Like right now, maybe it understands that when I'm searching for Apple, the fruit, and Apple, the company, now maybe it has a better understanding of that. But a lot of times I see that like very niche things, if it's ambiguous, then Google still has trouble understanding this. And this is where AI systems are still maturing. It's in the common sense reasoning. So if I'm saying something, what am I really saying? What is the meaning of what I'm saying? AI systems still struggle there, and I see a lot of failures from like even voice search because of those lack of common sense reasoning.
Would you consider Alexa from Amazon and Siri artificial intelligence with artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms? Does that fall into the category?
Alexa and Siri, yes. Behind the scenes, they do use AI. One is to recognize your speech, so translating what it hears into text so that it can process that information and send it back to you. So there's a lot of natural language processing involved in the whole process.
But I think they still can handle only simple questions. More complex questions, I realized, cannot be resolved.
Yes, it handles very specific, targeted, task-based instructions. Yes, it still doesn't understand a lot of general conversations, and I'm not sure you wanted to understand general conversations also. Yeah.
I think what I tried recently was translating. Especially, I'm not a native speaker. I mean, it's quite obvious. And sometimes when I read a word or when I have a word in mind in my mother tongue, in German, I would like to have it translated. And I tried Alexa and Siri. Just asked, I mean, what's the translation of this and that word? And it doesn't work in, let's say, 90% of cases. Why is that?
Because of the language understanding. So are you trying to translate first and then to English and then make it understand, or what is it that you're
both directions? I would like to have a sentence or a word translated from English into German or the other way around. And one day the Amazon machine suggested that they can also translate. So okay, that's great. I read a lot of books and would like to spare me the time to just use the internet and type it in myself. So it would be better if Alexa can do that instead of copying, basically from, for example, from an ebook like yours. It needs to copy and paste it, go to Google Translate and then see the translation. Would be just great while I'm reading that I just read it out loud and say, please translate it. And in 9 out of 10 cases, it doesn't work. And I would like to understand better why is that so difficult for machine learning to process more complex tasks?
Yeah, so machine learning systems are very task based. It doesn't have the external context. Like maybe you have a specific accent, it doesn't have that information built in. So it's using data trained on a lot of sources, but it's not specific to your voice or any glitches that you may bring about that it considers glitches. And it also operates at a certain level of accuracy. So maybe English to Spanish, it's maybe 98% accurate, but that's on things that it does understand. But if you throw an idiom at it, it may translate it completely weirdly in Spanish. It may not translate it as it should. So that's because it's learning based on data and not based on like abstraction of language concepts. So that's probably why it's making a lot of mistakes on the data that you are feeding it. It's not familiar with what it's seeing, so it just translates to the best guess. So it's always making the best guess. And maybe in your case, it was only 60% accurate as opposed to its usual 98% accuracy. And machine learning systems do well on data that it's familiar, but once the data is completely different or looks different, then it starts to make more mistakes. So that's why I think you are seeing what you are seeing.
Okay, so it's on data and not context. So this
a lot of it is very data driven, especially the deep learning systems, then based on lots of examples that it has seen. And maybe what you fed it was not something it's that familiar with, and it doesn't understand the contextual information. So then it starts to make a lot more mistakes.
And the language, there's probably also to translate longer texts.
Yes, and also the translation systems do better on short text versus longer text. And you fed it like paragraphs of text, right?
Yeah, I was just reading it, say, translate this, and then started talking, and then nothing happened. And it was not just single words, so I thought that they can also translate whole sentences or whole paragraphs. Yeah, and it loses memory after a while, like the context, it loses the contextual memory after a while. So I mean, I tried for where was it? It was 3 years ago when I got contracts in a foreign language. And I wanted to understand what's in the contract because I didn't believe that the interpretation of the lawyers were the correct one. So I thought, what can I do? I mean, you can hire a translation office, but the difficulty and the tricky thing in business is they need to understand also the context that I'm operating in. So if I have a translator who is not familiar with the business area I work in, they will have a hard time to interpret the contract in the right way. So I thought, okay, what is the next best solution? It was the first time when I tried Google Translate on contracts from English into German or from other language into German and from other language into English. And I was really impressed how well that works. It's really, I mean, the accuracy is extremely high. So the next best idea then was, after I had this positive experience with Google Translate, let's try it, just speaking the paragraph into the machine, but this didn't work so well. Yeah, and also there are two layers. One is your voice has to be translated first to text, and then it has to determine the correct translation to a different language. So there's multiple areas for it to make errors, and that error is being propagated. Yeah. Yeah, and even when a non-native speaker is speaking into the machine, it's probably different than when a native speaker tries. Also, yeah, it makes more mistakes when it has an accent that it's not heard before. Yeah. Is there a chance that it improves so that it can really become a communication partner where you say, okay, do this and that, and it happens? Yes, it is like, compared to like few years ago, the accuracy has significantly improved, but there's definitely room for more improvement, like understanding longer text, like translating, turning speech to text and then translating that to a different language. There is like a lot of work going on in improving those accuracies. Yeah. I think in the next 5 years, you'll see that, hey, you can actually do what you're doing with fairly good accuracy. I mean, the interesting thing, it's also science fiction again, Star Trek. It looks like that the computer is a really communication partner for scientists, where they use a conversation with the computer to solve scientific problems. Is that a possible future with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and NLP?
To solve scientific problems? Maybe. I've not really thought about this, but yeah, I mean, could be. I've not really thought through this too much.
What's the future of artificial intelligence in your eyes?
The future is there's a lot more research in making AI systems more like humans. Like we have the ability to abstract out concepts and then apply it to a different domain altogether. So we don't need to be told every single detail. Like if you say, close the book, we know which book you're talking about just because we have the contextual information around us. And AI systems will translate it quite literally. And that's where there's a lot of research going on. And that's where I think AI systems need more help, like taking in the environmental information, the context, and then making decisions based on that. And also learning, building on what it has learned. So right now it just learns, like it's a flat learning. It learns based on what it sees. So we want it to eventually build on what it's learned, like how we learn. We build on our knowledge over time and we become smarter and smarter. So we want AI systems.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. So we want AI systems to become like that, to build on its knowledge. So it's efficient and it can complete multiple tasks as opposed to just a single classification task. That's where I think AI systems are headed. And another area where I think that's interesting is in trying to use less data to achieve the same level of accuracies that you can achieve with a lot of data. So that's another area of research that I think is interesting and is needed.
Is there, I heard, I think it was Jack Ma from Alibaba who said a few years ago in a speech that his suggestion was to the question, what schools should teach to children? He said creativity, because creativity is the only part that machines can never excel human beings. So human beings will always be better in anything that's creative. Do you see that there is a chance that also artificial intelligence machines become creative like human beings?
There is a lot of AI systems that can generate like creative images based on past images that it has seen. And the images are actually really, really nice and realistic. So you just say, I want an image that does this, this, and this, and it produces a nice image. So I think creativity now is being automated, but that's probably in drawing and visual art. But I think where we really shine is in all the soft skill, the people-to-people interaction, the abstraction of knowledge that I don't think any AI systems will become as accurate as us in that sense. And that's where humans will still shine. Yeah.
As long as we get proper training. So.
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
No, it's really exciting talking about this topic. I see that we are coming to the end of the hour. Is there a question open that you want me to ask, or an area that we didn't tackle so far that you would like to speak about?
So tell me about some of the problem areas that you have seen that you think, based on our conversation, where AI can now become a potential solution.
It's a very good question. I think there is a lot of room, what I heard from colleagues in drug development, especially when it comes to data interpretation or running through the data. Currently, a lot of data in science is generated. And as you mentioned before, think research, for example, finding studies or finding problems that are documented and already been solved that are similar to the problem a person faces in drug development is something that probably can be automated in a very high way. I also, in one of the recent conversations in the podcast, I presented a website that said that 90% of all scientists that have ever lived are still alive today. So the number of PhDs are going up exponentially currently. A lot of new PhDs in China, in Europe, in the United States, in African countries, in South America. So it's really the time of science. And science always generates data. So I thought to myself, I mean, how can we handle that huge amount of data? And how can we make sense of data? And probably this is also an area where artificial intelligence can help, because the importance is when someone in the lab, for example, in, let's say, Czech Republic in Prague, conducts an experiment and they put it in the public domain. How can we make sure that the result, when it's relevant to a scientist, let's say in Shanghai, for example, who is working in a similar field, who needs the know-how and the knowledge and the results of this experiment, how can we make sure that this person finds it very quickly? And we talked about the old way. So like in the 90s, it would have been impossible simply to bring the information from Prague to Shanghai. Now we have the internet, now we have computers, or let's not say Shanghai, let's say New York, for example, it's on the other side of the world. How can we make sure that the results get very quickly to the right person? And is this also an area in which artificial intelligence can help, in your opinion?
Yes, definitely, especially understanding the research that's been done and then connecting the dots to a research that's happening here in China and then sending that information. So definitely, so there's a lot of natural language processing involved in trying to understand the existing research, summarizing it, and then making the connective dots to this other research, which looks similar. Maybe this researcher will benefit from this publication that's already out there. So again, doing all the groundwork for this researcher. So literature review for this Chinese research. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I started using Google Alerts for my purposes. It's not very high developed, but it's already a great help. I mean, to get a report every morning in the inbox of websites that might be relevant to me. And I think there is a lot of room for improvement to connecting the right people.
Correct. Yeah, especially in summarizing that information. Like right now, it just pushes all the relevant links. But what if you can pull out the tidbits that might be interesting, or things that are actually really relevant to you, just knowing you as a person, what you do, your podcast, and then it'll be a lot more helpful, I think.
Now, also, when we talk about people and podcasts, I think in business is always the big question: how do you find the right customer? How do you find the person? Or from the other perspective, how does the customer find the right solution? In time, a lot of data is on the internet today, but as you said, having an algorithm working in the background that observes my behavior and actively start recommending solutions that make my life better would probably not be very welcomed in Brussels in Europe with the data protection guidelines that we have.
Yeah.
But it would be very helpful for me as a customer or as a company. I mean, hooking up, for example, imagine podcast. When the algorithm sees which guests I have on my show, automatically running through the internet, recommending people or contacting the people right away and say, would you be interested to come on the show? This would be, is this something that you could also imagine for automation with artificial intelligence?
Yes, I think there are actually solutions out there that do that. I'm not sure if you've heard of, I think it's called Podmatch or Podcast Match.
Yeah, but this is still manual work, in my opinion. So
it is what?
It's still, I have to enter a lot of, I tried it, I have to enter a lot of information.
I see, yeah. So I've not tried it, but yes, that is definitely an area where AI can help the recommendation of prospective guests and also prospective podcasts to those guests. Definitely, yeah. So it's a combination of AI, information retrieval, and recommendation algorithms coming together.
Now, a lot of room for improvement, in my opinion.
Yes, definitely. And maybe that's a product idea for you to start.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, there's so much LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn exists already, and with some solutions that I tried, it looks to me they just try to reinvent LinkedIn. So what's necessary, in my opinion, is the layer above social media that we currently have, to connecting the right people, not just implementing the next similar version like what we already have. So this connecting people on because of their behavior and matching people to increase the chance of both people making a business at the end of the day. If this is something resolvable for artificial intelligence data scientists, it would be really a great thing.
Yeah, so I'm sure LinkedIn is looking at those research ideas, but maybe it's not quite there yet. But LinkedIn does a lot of those type of research, yeah. And you might see it one day in your on the sidebar.
How do you see it? Facebook, for example. I mean, are the algorithms in place that help matching people with information, hoping that it improves the relationship?
I've stopped using Facebook, so I don't know how much of that is there, but Facebook does use a lot of AI for a lot of different things. And one area is to like control spam. So remove spammy posts that it thinks is spam. And then the human actually reviews it and then says that, yes, this is spam, and then removes it. And then it uses it for contextual advertising. So it wants to know what type of ads to show to you based on your activity on the platform. And some of that's really relevant. So it's quite creepy because it knows a lot about you and your activity. But pardon?
No, I don't mind that. I mean, this was something that I appreciated since the 90s when I started using the internet. That basically the search algorithm started recommending solutions for me that are tailored for myself. I think it's more a problem for our politicians here in Europe that because of the data that's collected in the background, that they see a risk for the population. I'm not so sure if there's really a risk for that. Do you see it as a risk when companies collect data at scale?
The problem is when they collect data and then they sell it to third-party sources that then use it to promote their propaganda, the political propaganda. That's when it becomes a real problem. So collecting the data itself is okay, but how you use that data is what's problematic. So I think what they're saying is don't collect the data in the first place because we don't know how you're going to use this. And we have seen this in the elections here in the US where the data can be used for really skewing the political propaganda.
Yeah, I think this would be a whole other discussion for a separate podcast. No, I mean, this would be a very long topic to run through this. I mean, when I just imagine that there is this cancel culture term currently on the internet, that people just get shut off from social media and they started thinking about it. What does that mean? Because 10 years ago, when someone told me I'm blocked at this and that platform, I say, okay, why do you worry? I mean, nobody's on the platform anyway. So if you can't use it, what do you really lose? Because you have your real life connections. And with the pandemic, I think a lot changed, especially in the pharma industry. My environment before 2020, almost nobody used social media. And 2 years later or 3 years later, meanwhile, I would say 99% of my business acquaintances who didn't use social media before the pandemic now use it. I mean, the go-to platform is LinkedIn, of course, not so much Facebook. And I just imagined, I mean, when people start connecting on LinkedIn, when they integrate it into their businesses, and someday maybe a new CEO just decides no Europeans should be on the platform and just cancels them and deplatforms them. It really has a huge impact, I think, in 2020, 2022, 2023 in the business processes. And I'm amazed that Facebook, for example, mentioned lately that the fact checkers that have also the potential to just cut people off and deplatform them, that they just do it based on an opinion, and there is no process in place to oppose that. And I just thought, when a society wants to cancel or wants to prevent a person from a public space, in reality, they need a proper court trial. So there is a process for that. And in my opinion, when I look at social media and data protection and these deplatforming tendencies, I think there should also be a proper process in place, and not a decision of sometimes, I think, young people in the background. How do you see that?
So I think it's based on what Facebook thinks is a valid thing to appear on its feed versus what it's not. And that can, I think it's very contextual based on the country, the current political climate in the country, and the side effects of the actions of the people. So I think it takes all of that in consideration when it actually chooses to ban people from the platform. So I think there are a lot of humans in the loop right there deciding those things. And I think to me, that's important, because you don't want to create unnecessarily political harm in a specific country. So it's trying to do that. Maybe not as well as it could, but they're trying, and I guess they need more people. And another problem that Facebook has is the language. It mostly understands, the algorithms mostly understand English. So in other languages, it has to depend on human understanding of those posts. And you can't always get people to jump on board and help flag posts that are irrelevant. So I think that's where it's slacking off. Like in other countries, it can't get people to help as much. Whereas in the US, they largely depend on algorithms with humans in the loop. So I think Facebook needs to think about how to keep the platform fairly safe in all countries, not just in the US, but throughout the world. If you want to operate in all parts of the world, you need to think about that as well. You can't just think that English is the primary language. Yeah.
But who decides what's safe and what not? This is a huge problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's it's not a black or white thing. Yeah.
The interesting thing, for example, during the pandemic was that one of my friends basically managed to get banned on LinkedIn, because I mean, he's a scientist and he has a certain way of communicating. That's true, but what he communicates are scientific facts. And at one point during the pandemic, the scientific facts that he presented were the opposite of the general accepted opinion back then. The result was that he get banned for a certain time on LinkedIn. And the interesting thing was that 2 years later, the same facts are now a general know-how, general knowledge. So I think the big question, with the power that the internet currently has globally to decide to restrict access to a platform, is a really tough one.
Yeah, definitely. It's become easier to spread misinformation, and also easier to eliminate facts from coming up. So yeah. definitely a huge problem.
But a long discussion. Let's go back to artificial intelligence. Let me ask you one final question. When someone is interested to start now, after listening to the podcast, to explore artificial intelligence for their company, what is the first step that you recommend?
Yeah, the first step is to see whether you want to do this as a one-off pilot just to try, or do you want it to become part of your business? Because it's quite different when you just try something versus you want it to actually deliver value for your business long term. One-off pilots are something you can just start right away. But for the long-term preparation of AI, you need to think about what are your technology, or just what are the gaps in your company. So in my book, I talk about B Kids. So the 5 preparation pillars for AI. So that'll help you identify the gaps in your company. So maybe you're not collecting data aggressively from the daily running of your business. Maybe you're still operating based off paper processes. So you need to start digitizing those so that you can actually start using them for analytics, reporting, and all of that. And some companies have their data stores in silos. And this is not good for AI because you need the complete view of your data. So then you need to consider data warehousing. So identifying all the gaps will give you an idea of what are the things you need to do to prepare for AI for the long term. And also you need to understand where are the opportunities in your company. So start identifying those. Look for manual processes that we talked about earlier. Look for legacy software automation. Look into your customer feedback. So maybe there's something in your customer feedback that indicates that you need automation, a specific type of automation that maybe could use AI. So identifying those opportunities in your company will help you say, hey, maybe most of our opportunities are in sales. So let's start there. And then you can use the gaps and these potential opportunities to plan your short-term strategy. So what will you do first? So maybe close 30% of your gaps and maybe execute one sales AI-related initiative as a pilot. So you're not just building out random AI projects, it's actually tied into a business pain point. And at the same time, you are filling your gaps that will prepare you for the next decade. So this is how I recommend the companies start. So understand the landscape within your company before you start.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Kavita, thank you very much for this excellent conversation. It was very interesting and I enjoyed it from the first to the last minute. And I could go on for another 2 hours if you want to.
Yes.
But I think you have also other things to do. Let's stay in touch and maybe we do another podcast in a couple of months.
Sure. Yeah. And let's thank you for having me. And I enjoyed this conversation.
Have a great day today. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.